Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Kirby, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. In the lead up to Scream 7, I couldn't be more grateful for everybody out there who listens to the show, who supports my podcast here, listening every episode, or on social media on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. If you would like to become a member of the podcast, come to the group Zooms, be on the show on a one-on-one or small group setting, consider joining the Patreon with Scream with Ryan C. Showers. In addition to the benefits of coming on the podcast, you can also join our social media groups, in particular on Instagram. That's the main hub of the podcast. I also do a monthly audio commentary of a Scream movie or a Scream-related film. From now through April, we are going to be having a new Scream movie audio commentary. So if you would like to hear my thoughts in an audio commentary form in the style of Wes Craven, Marion Maddalena, et al. Of the original trilogy, please consider subscribing and supporting the show. Thank you to every single person out there who subscribes on Patreon. Specifically, I need to thank my Daddy Ghost Faces and Stab investors over at Patreon. Starting out strong, we have Carrie Tenney, our Mama Ghostface, Corey Wilson, and Brett Janovich. And then we have Kevin Abner, Ali, Roy Garza, Josh Carr, Mark Rim, PWO5, Gustavo Mora, Mark Vieira, Scream Queens podcast, both Josh and Justine, Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault, Christian Ranke, The Horror Project podcast, David D, Jess Mariano, Sam Levy, Tamika Jones, Josh Calamari, and Andrew Dominguez. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. So this is part 2 of an episode that premiered on Tuesday. It's about Sidney Prescott's motherhood in Scream 7 and kind of our predictions, our musing, our thoughts about it. In my opinion, again, this is like the prime subject of the movie. I think it's what most people are interested in, especially for Sidney fans and especially for original trilogy fans who recognize that Sidney's arc and her entire character is tied up into her relationship with her mother. So in the first part, we talked a lot about Sidney and Tatum. And while we still talk about it here, we also reflect on Sidney's relationship with Maureen and the figure that Maureen Prescott is in the Scream lore, and how she is still going to kind of linger in Scream 7 as Sidney is now the mother. You know, it was so interesting in the first trilogy, it was always Sidney was the daughter with the mother that she couldn't understand, or the mother that was putting her in harm's way in a sense. And now it's the perfect thesis for a new trilogy, right? Where Sidney is now, she's transitioned from being the daughter to now being the mother with the daughter who's trying to understand her and trying to keep her safe. So it's a really cool dynamic. And that is kind of the heart of Scream 7. So I hope everyone enjoys my discussion with my friend Jess here. So you're obviously going to hear more about this on Monday, but there was a huge piece of news that was released this week. Not only did we get a TV spot with some new footage, but we also got the official theatrical poster of Scream 7 with all of the cast on it. So it's in the style of the 5 and 6 poster, and I know that a lot of people were disappointed by that. I love this poster that we got. I really do. And I think of this new era, it is by far the best one in terms of being better than Scream 6 and Scream 5. I think just the individual actors look so much more impressive here. They look more realistic. I like the intimate focus that Sidney has. I like that she is the biggest face. I like that Isabel is the second biggest face, and that it's kind of both of their stories, right? And it's interesting that Gail here is in the middle of the entire poster, really given a place of prominence. And I feel like that's kind of a reverberation of all of the discourse about Gail Weathers post Scream 6. So, and it's just such an aesthetically pleasing poster. I love the colors. I love how dark it is. It of of course, features the Mocker House at the bottom. In addition to, our three queens here, the three most important characters. We have Sidney, Tatum, and Gale, of course, but otherwise we have Sam Reckner, who plays Tatum's boyfriend. We have Anna Camp, who plays Sidney's best friend, and the mother of Asa German's character, who's also on the poster. We have Timothy Simmons, who plays the drama teacher at Tatum's school. We have McKenna Grace, who plays a friend of Tatum, of course. We have Mark Consuelos, who plays one of the reporters in town who has beef with Gale. We have Joel McHale, of course, who plays Mark Evans. He's kind of small, not going to lie. And then we have Ethan Embry, who is playing somebody at the mental hospital, it appears, based off of his outfit on the poster. We have Celeste O'Connor, who plays a friend of Tatum's. And of course, we have Chad and Mindy, Mason Gooding and Jasmine Savoy, survivors from 5 and 6, and carrying over the legacy of the Core 4 or that era into the future here. And they both look great. It's a wonderful poster. It's so pretty. There are sparks flying. Taylor Swift reference on the poster because everything's being burnt to the ground. And there's a new tagline that says "Fear hits home." I love that. I think that's more appropriate for a character-centric poster, whereas the "Burn It All Down" was appropriate for the Ghostface teaser poster in October. So I love this poster. I really have no notes about it. I know some people are disappointed that we didn't get the traditional 5-person mugshot cast lineup from the original trilogy. Here's what I say. Yes, I want that too. I would love to see a Scream 2 or 3 styled poster, and maybe we'll get that. Maybe they'll release that as an alternate poster. However, we do have to recognize that we are in a different time. There are even down to SAG rules, like Screen Actors Guild. I think that if you're certain actors, most of the cast ensemble, they have it in their contracts that they have to have their face on the main poster, which is why we get posters like this, not just with Stranger Things, not just with the Avengers, but it's not just Scream, it's everything. So, but I just think everybody looks so good. Again, the Nev, Isabel Courtney effect is so good. Oh my God. And get this is the first poster we've had since Scream 3, a majority of adult characters versus teenage characters. So that's really exciting to me. And there are people on here that I was really surprised by. I was surprised to see Mark Consuelos, but I guess he's famous. He's Kelly Ripa's husband. He has his morning show. I was really surprised to see Timothy Simmons in here. But yeah. Ethan Embry was a huge shock, but I guess he is a 90s actor and a legend in his own right. So yeah, but the poster is wonderful. I think it's the best of this new era, better than the Scream 4 kind of weird photoshopped poster. I think it's great. And again, it's another sign. I think people are really excited. Everyone's thrilled with the TV spot that we just got. So, more to come. We haven't had a trailer as of yet. We don't know when that's coming, if it's coming at all. Maybe there's not going to be a second trailer. I feel like this movie has finally woken up and become an event. And I think people, the anticipation is palpable. Even the way that people are writing about it online has shifted from a month ago to now in terms of the tone and the excitement. So it's going to be a great time, guys. We are in for such a treat. And we only really have 6 weeks left, less than 6 weeks left of this time before we see Scream 7. So exciting. So everyone, please enjoy the rest of the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for this segment of the podcast. I'm sitting here with one of my favorite contributors. I've actually met this girl in real life. She was one of the first Patreons I got to meet out in the wild. We actually got to have dinner together and spend the evening together, and it was just so cool. But everyone, please welcome, without further ado, Jess Mariano. Hey, Jess.
I love how you say out in the wild of Pennsylvania.
Out in the wild of Pennsylvania, of course. So how's it going?
It's going good. We're getting closer to February, so that's exciting. Yeah, I work a lot, so it's nice to have something to distract me.
You've been a supporter of the Patreon and the podcast for many years, and the first people I met from the Patreon and from the podcast world I met TikTok Jake, of course, but then you were the second person I got to meet, and it was just it was so cool because you happened to be in the city where I live, and we went out to my favorite restaurant. I have to say, you were exactly the person I thought you would be whenever we met in person. The same energy that comes across when you've been on the podcast and whenever we've texted or messaged, it has it was exactly who I met, if that makes sense.
I would say the same thing about you.
Really? Okay, cool.
I remember I was making sarcastic jokes and you were like, "Oh, you're funny."
Oh my gosh. Well, no, and that was so fun because back then whenever we met, that was 2 weeks after Melissa had exited the franchise, and
yeah.
things were tense. Like, I mean, they were tense for a while in terms of just the Scream world. But but regardless, like I remember we were talking about this, and you kind of said to me like, how could anybody not want to see Sidney come back? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just so fun to think about like that we were like face to face, like in person, eating pasta 2 years ago. And now here we are. We're about to get Scream 7 starring Nev Campbell as the main character, directed by Kevin Williamson.
Right, because I don't even think at that time we knew yet if she was coming back or anything, right?
Correct. So at that point, we had just had the suspicions, the vibes, and
Yeah.
what do you think about Kevin Williamson not only being the director and the co-writer?
I love it. I've seen lots of Kevin Williams stuff. I was the generation where Dawson's Creek was huge, which I saw you were rewatching or starting for the first time.
Starting for the first time.
Vampire Diaries, like all of that stuff. Like those are shows that were on while I was growing up. So I always watched them, and obviously the Scream movies. And I don't know if we ever talked about this, but originally like 15, 20 years ago, I went to film school like for screenwriting. So
hmm
I was all about Kevin Williamson. So for him to come back is awesome. It's awesome that he's credited like he is as a writer. So we know for sure now.
First of all, I love that you referenced Kevin in that way. Of like, oh, I was like an aspiring screenwriter or a student of screenwriting, and then like, of course, I knew who he was. That's so awesome. But going a step further, let's complete the arc of our time that we spent together, whenever we met. So my friend Jess here, she delivered to me a opening script, maybe 10 pages of imagining what the Maureen Prescott murder would have been. And why don't you tell everybody about that script and about your vision for like if you would have been in charge as an aspiring screenwriter, how would you have mapped out the Maureen Prescott murder and opening?
I mean, I just did what we knew, but I took it like, in Scream 3, what they show us as the murder scene. I guess we don't necessarily know for sure that that's how it actually looked. Like Sidney certainly reacts like that's how it looked. So I knew I wanted the like violence, and obviously I'm a huge Roman person, so I wanted that tie back in. It made me so angry in Scream 6 when they had Sidney say like, "Oh, this all started with Billy Loomis." I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like,
Yeah.
so I really wanted to pull that back, so I have that in there that he's kinda pulling the strings. Yeah, and then that's how you know it's him because he calls her Rena. Ghostface calls her Rena on the phone. And it also, I think right around that time was when you guys had, like, the Screams script and that one at the opening scene where you guys had them, like, in the house, like,
hmm
and all of that, that what also showed, like, the double ghost faced thing, so I always kinda thought it would be who knows if that was the intentions. I mean, I think I've read that Kevin said, like, he never had intentions of it being Ghostface that killed Maureen, but he didn't do that storyline, so whatever.
Well, you know what? Like, I love Kevin, and listen, like this man, I'm welcoming him with open arms. I think that his contributions with Scream 7, they, along with Nev Campbell, are saving the franchise. The two of them together.
Absolutely.
But also Kevin is human. He is not perfect. So in my mind, in my head canon, I believe I would love to believe that it was Ghostface. And like let's just talk about this for a second, okay? Jess and I were eating dinner, and she pulled out like a printed out page, and she said, "Here." And I wasn't sure like what I should do. Should I read it now? Should I read it later? She asked me to read it now in the restaurant, which was fun. But no, so I think about Roman's inclusion, like him sitting at the on the street outside of the house. I think about that often. I don't know why. But speaking of Roman, you're a big Roman fan. You're a Scream 3 person. We have Scott Foley in Scream 7, and like after Skeet Ulrich, and the incessant hype of Matthew Lillard and his kind of place in the fandom, it's no surprise that the originals would be coming back. But if we recall, this time last year, whenever it was announced that Scott Foley was returning, he was the first announcement. He came before Matthew Lillard. He came before David Arquette, and it was kind of the big barn burner moment that people were like, oh, "Shit, this is like something."
Yeah, I remember you
next level.
sent me the screenshot of the story, and I was at work, and I was like, "What?"
Well, so tell me, what would you like to see of Scott Foley in Scream 7?
Man, I mean, I have I have a lot of faith in Kevin Williamson and these actors like Scott Foley, Matthew Lillard. Like, I don't think they'd come back if it were like ridiculous. So I'm hoping it's not that. I assume it will be like an AI type thing. I would like it to be, I think I told you this before. I thought it would be interesting since like there was all the hype about, like, the mental hospital. Like, I thought it would be cool if, like, one of our killers is in the mental hospital, like, and they're just kind of obsessed with the movie, so they're seeing, like, the killers, like, Roman and them, like, and they're telling him, like, how to be Ghostface or something. I think that could be cool. I have faith that they wouldn't do any of that if it wasn't gonna be done correctly. And I don't think that they would take time out of, like, their careers to come back and do it either. But so I'm hoping it's done right. I'm really glad it's Kevin and not anybody else.
Honestly, it would feel so weird for it to not be Kevin. You know what I mean? Like over the weekend, I was going through my Instagram stories because I went into like get all of my episode posts into like a folder, and so I was going through the history of the podcast and the history of like Scream, of this era of Scream, and I was just thinking about this time where we didn't know who the director could be or would be, and I'm just thinking about it like there would be no one else that would feel right. In my opinion, Scream is something very special and something to be treasured. It's not something that just anybody can pick up and do, you know what I mean? Or that they should be allowed to do. This is something very precious. And, my friend Joey has said that, he thinks that perhaps Radio Silence, whenever they were picked, that maybe the studio wasn't thinking about it in such precious ways. But it just, for
Right.
me, going forward, if it can't be Wes Craven, then it should be someone like Kevin Williamson. So I love that.
Yeah, I think, like, maybe the expectation was that Radio Silence were such big fans that it was gonna be really great, and not that it was, like, absolutely horrible or anything, it's just it was not what it could have been, and hopefully we're getting that back, which you can see from, like, even the scripts that Joey has written. Like, there are way more, like, stories that can be told by fans. I don't know what Radio Silence was doing. I did like both those movies. If you remember when Scream 6 came out, I was just so hyped to have a new movie that I was like, "Yes." And
Mhm.
then, like, the next couple times I saw it, I was like,
You're like, no.
maybe not."
Well, and I just hope that like the same kind of reaction that Scream 6 had, and not just from like you, but just from like the world in terms of just people being so hyped and having so much fun with it. I hope that Scream 7 gets that same treatment and that same grace. And because I have no doubt, and I don't mean to sound like a dick, but I have no doubt that Scream 7 is going to be a smarter movie, a better made movie, a better acted movie, a better overall representation of what Scream is than Scream
Mhm.
6 was. And I think that like it's going to be held to a certain standard, are going to be haters out there. There's going to be people with political agendas out there. So I mean, Scream 7 it faces a lot of adversaries. So I hope that it lives up to that hype. But I hope that also people get caught up in the fun of it. Like it makes me so sad to think about people who aren't having fun with this moment, who aren't having fun
Yeah,
seeing Sidney Prescott on screen again. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I want to ask you about the trailer. So from what we have seen so far of Scream 7, what are your thoughts?
I definitely liked the trailer. There's little things, even just, like, artistic wise, I like how they have, like, the lights flash when the phone rings, like, throughout the trailer. They kept it, like, really dark. It seems like based off of, like, wardrobes, most of what we saw is kind of all in the same day. Hopefully, that's not just, like hopefully the movie's not just one day. But, we see a lot of different things of her in that striped shirt. So, for all of those things to happen, like, in those different areas, like, a lot happens in that first day of the film. I like how I don't know if it was intentional or if it's just me or what, but there was like a lot of little things that made me think of the original movies, like the tapping the knife on the wall reminded me of the window in the first movie of the car,
Oh my
or
god. Wow.
like, and then I was like, is that on purpose? Like, because are they want us to think it's Stu and like Stu was doing that in the original ones? There, yeah, that. And then just in Scream 2, when she puts her face to the wall, that's kind of like the bathroom scene.
Mhm.
And then the voice changer thing from Scream 3 is just making me, like, think about the AI stuff when they showed the voices, so I don't know if that was intentional or not, but there's, like, a lot of little clips that they chose from that movie that, like, mimicked stuff from the originals, so I liked that a lot. Yeah, and I like that they didn't show that many people. I like that they didn't show Anna Camp at all because I feel like she's one of the bigger names in it, so it's a little suspicious that she might be a significant role, so it's nice that they didn't show her. I like that they made it look like Halloween with the 3 girls walking, that was cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot of things, and then there were some things that I questioned, like, why do they leave the safe room?
Yeah.
Because yeah, like, it looks like it's just her and her daughter, not Mark, so I
Mhm.
guess, like, maybe they're trying to go get him and help him, I don't know, but I was like, "If why are they or are they in their pretty room?"
Their pretty room. Oh my gosh. Well, we'll get to the pretty room in a second. So here's my interpretation of that scene from the trailer. So how I think it goes down, just based off of everything, because right in that sequence we see Sidney and Mark together in the bedroom before the attack happens, and then we see something happen, and then then we see Sidney closing the panic room door, and then they're in the walls. So how I've interpreted this is like Mark and Ghostface got into it, or Mark got knocked out, or something, and then that's when
Yeah.
Sidney and Tatum go to the safe room. And I think that to get out of Sidney's safe room, there's a way to get through, like to get out of the house, to get to safety outside. I think that you kind of crawl through the walls. I think that at least that's how I've interpreted. Like that's a way to safely, securely get out of the building. But you're right. Why would they not just stay in the safe rooms and stay put?
I
But
mean,
we'll
maybe
see.
they'll have him do something like to the room so that they can't stay in there, or he's maybe sort of able to get in. Who knows? But yeah, I interpret it the same way too. I think Mark's just like knocked out or something. Then he'll be back later.
So I have to ask, what do you think about Mark? So Mark Evans, not Mark Kincaid. We will talk about Mark Kincaid in a second, but do you think that he will die? Do you think that he is going to survive? Do you think what are your vibes about him? Because he is not Mark Kincaid. And as you're a Scream 3 person, I'm a Scream 3 person. Recently, especially, I've been, kind of, I don't want to say sad, but like having just done the final Scream where I got to like imagine how Patrick Dempsey would be saying certain lines and stuff. I'm kind of, it's just like, this is a whole new Mark, it's, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I wish like they maybe could have just given him a different name. But I certainly am a Mark Kincaid person, but I can accept somebody else because aside from Radio Silence, like we never really knew if they were together. Yeah, I mean, I like Joel McHale a lot in a lot of other things, but most of those things are comedies. He is in like that one weird horror movie about Christmas. He does all right in that. So like I think he'll be okay. It's just like a matter of how they write it. I kind of don't think he's gonna die, or maybe it's like we're not gonna know or come back at the last minute type situation, like because I just think it would be really obvious. Like, I know me and you've talked about this before. When it was meant to be Mark Kincaid, I truly felt like that was going to have a lot of weight to it for fans, for them to kill him, and to Sidney, obviously. With it not being him and a new character, his death I don't think will mean as much if they just kill him right away. Or maybe that's why they'll kill him right away. But I feel like they're not showing us his death in the trailer.
Yeah.
That's not, I don't think, what we're seeing.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. I don't think that they're showing us his death. Whatever we see, we don't know what we're seeing.
And yeah, we'll see what's going on with the twins. I don't know I still don't know how I feel about that. I do like them. I didn't know they'd come back into the story this quickly. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think one of them's probably a goner. So
Yeah.
we'll see which one.
Here's the thing, I don't mind. I don't mind that they're in this movie. One, because I actually genuinely like Chad, and two, if Kevin Williamson loves Mindy as much as he says he does, or like, as much as Jasmine Savoy says he does, I think that like there's a cool opportunity to improve Mindy after Scream 6, which a lot of people really don't like her in that movie. So I'm all for making the characters better. But the biggest takeaway I see from this is like I feel like this is the studio telling us like we are moving on from what was before. You know what I mean? When we are moving on from the Carpenters and like we're continuing on having these survivors here and having like Chad as kind of like the new leading guy and Mindy as like the rules person, despite the Carpenters. Like they don't have to live with the Carpenters. They can grow
Yeah.
beyond them. And I think that's a good message.
Yeah, and I'm hoping like if they are involved, it's going to be some kind of tie-in to something having to do with Randy, so we get a little bit of that. Because I mean, I haven't heard any rumors about him being involved in any of it, but that would be cool. What do you think about Jill? Will we see Jill
I
or hear Jill?
hope I really really hope that we do. For me the best parts of Scream are about Sydney's family. It's about the secrets of Sydney's family. It's about like the personal connections, and that's why I think Roman and Jill are the best ghost faces, and it's about Maureen's backstory, for me. And I think that like it would be sad to not have Jill but have all these other killers. So I don't know, but if she doesn't come back now, maybe she'll come back later. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you?
I think like I don't remember. This was a long time ago, but at some point you did maybe a group podcast or something that I couldn't go to that was like what people wanted from a Scream 7. And I remember like telling you that I need some kind of acknowledgement about Roman and Jill. Not that they haven't been acknowledged. We just haven't really had Sydney acknowledge them
Yeah.
and like had like more of a conversation about it. So I would definitely like to see that. I remember there were rumors that she was going to be in it, so I'm hoping it's something. But yeah, you're right, maybe down the line is better. I know she was a character that Kevin had planned to
Right.
incorporate in his storyline, so maybe we'll do that. Honestly, I'm happy with anything like at this point. It's kind of like the stew of it all, if he is or isn't alive. Obviously, don't think he's alive, but after, like, accepting what I had to accept in Scream 5 and 6, like, if they have an explanation, like, I'll accept it.
Here's the thing that I think is cool about Roman being the one that's back as opposed to, as opposed to other people, right? Why was Scott Foley announced but nobody else was besides Stu? I think it's cool because Kevin Williamson did not write Scream 3. There's obviously some hard feelings there that he didn't get the opportunity to. A lot of fans were harsh on Scream 3 for many years because of the fact that Kevin wasn't involved. And I think that because this is a Kevin Williamson film and a Sidney film, I think it's important that we see Roman. And it sounds like Scott Foley talks in the movie. So I think I think it's great that of all of the killers, he was chosen as the one to talk to Sidney and be featured in this way.
Yeah, and they announced it too, and they could have tried to keep it quiet, so hopefully it's significant, right? I did have a question for you about it, but I can't remember. Gail. So, do you think at any point, because that was the other thing I had told you I wanted in a Scream 7 was like, will we ever have like more of a Gail backstory? Because we just have never I mean, we had her briefly mention, like, that her mom wasn't great. I always just, like, kinda wonder if we're ever gonna, like, go there.
I would love to see it. Do I think that Courtney would commit to the movie to be, have a more leading role like she did in Scream 2 and 3? I don't know. But I would love to see more of a Gale backstory. What would you imagine for a Gale backstory?
God, I don't know. It just, they make her into this, like, complex character, and we're always kind of told what the trauma was that created Sydney. And also the trauma that created Maureen, and we're probably about to see the trauma that's creating Tatum, her daughter. So I would like to see like what made Gail who she is. I guess because I'm like a therapist and I'm always looking into like people's backstories, I can't help but think about it, even though it's like a fictional character. I would like to see where that went, or even just some stories like of how things were when it was her and Dewey, like, and they were happy briefly in New York. We never heard anything about that. Maybe we'll see her grieve Dewey a bit more, and that will kind of be the backstory that we get.
Yeah. What I would love to see at some point, and I'm sure you and I have talked about this, but like I would love to see a flashback scene of the trio, Sydney, Gale, and Dewey, between the events of 3 and 4, or maybe even after the events of 4, just to see them all together again. I think that would be really sweet. And there's many ways you can do it, right? You can do a happy flashback, or just imagine like the opening of Scream 8. What if it takes place like in the year like 2002 or 2003, where, the opening is like the three of them are together. There's a dinner party, just like Kevin kind of originally envisioned for Scream 4, and the dinner party gets attacked, and there's like a mini Ghostface thing, and then we flash forward to the present day. I would love to see the trio all together again one last time.
I'm hoping we're getting at least a little bit of something like that with David Arquette, just because I'm hoping that we're not just getting an AI one liner
Hmm.
from him, just because, I mean, I think it sucks that we don't get to have him in this one. I don't think that he would have been very interested in being killed off in the last one had he had known that this is what was coming,
Yeah.
to have like Kevin back and everything. I hope we do get something along those lines, if not in this one eventually, because he's obviously one of the people who just personally himself wanted to stay in the films and be involved.
Yeah. Well, so before we go any further, is it okay if I throw you the lightning round, the speed round questions of Scream with Ryan C. Showers? It's been a while since you've been
Jeez.
here. So,
Yeah, let's do it.
okay. So, Sydney, Gail, or Ty?
Sydney.
Sam or Tara?
I think I said Sam last time, but I think now I've moved on to Tara.
Okay. Favorite movie buff?
I mean, maybe Kirby.
I like it. Favorite killer?
Right.
Roman, my
I messed
boy.
up before. You asked me before, and I said Billy, like, one of the first times I was on, and I was like, "Why'd I say that?"
See, in my head, I just thought you said Roman before. So, if you wouldn't have reminded me, I wouldn't have remembered that because now I do. I remember thinking, I remember you saying Billy. I'm like, what the fuck? So, favorite opening and favorite finale.
I mean, favorite opening is definitely gonna be the first one, but I have little things that I like about all of them, but yeah, definitely the first one. And finale, I mean, I have to go with 3, but I'm a firm believer in, like, yeah, like, 3s wouldn't be as good if 1 wasn't there, so it's all kind of part of it, but yeah, obviously 3,
Yeah. Do you
without a
have
doubt.
Jess is a Scream 3 person along with me. Like that's how we kind of get each other between the Roman and the finale question here. So, favorite scene in any of the films?
I mean, I always say the same one, and I always say I don't know why I say it, but, like, for some reason, I always just remember the scene where, like, Dewey and Gail are on the phones, and he's like, "Don't you think that's what the killer would say?" I don't know why that scene is something that I always remember.
Favorite supporting role?
God, there's so many of them. I don't know. I guess maybe Cotton Weary.
Love it. I love a
Yeah,
cotton
since
girl.
I watched the first 3 recently, so, I'm a Cotton person again right now.
Nice. Are you yay or nay on the Scream TV series?
I mean, I'm yay because 'cause I'm yay for anything Scream. I watched it, I enjoyed it. I just didn't I've talked about this before, like, in the Patreon groups, like, if you weren't gonna use the ghost face mask, I just wish they could have used one that didn't look like a sex doll.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
there you go.
literally, like, exactly. And so that part throws me off, but I think the story was good. It would've been interesting to keep it going.
Yeah. Well, my last question for the speed run is, do you have a favorite thing or a favorite memory about the podcast?
I mean, obviously, I guess when we went out to eat, that
Yeah.
was cool. Like, there was a lot of funny conversations that I remember from that night. I remember you telling me that you had to, like, text Joey a thumbs up, making sure I wasn't, like, a psychopath when you
Yeah.
first got there.
I forgot he did ask me to say that yeah, oh wow, that's funny. There's also
And
that was
you immediately gave me some of Courtney's hand lotion in your car.
oh my god, I forgot I did that. Oh my god. Yes, so
And
I
then when we're reading my script, I remember, like, you were like, "Oh, I don't know, like, you really think Maureen you're writing it like she'd be doing these things with Sydney home?" And I'm like, "Yeah, she did do these things with Sydney."
okay, I do remember that. You brought out the truth. You brought out who Maureen was to me. You helped me understand her more. So
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about Maureen or any of our characters, really, like, we have, like, their good side and their bad side. We kinda lost that recently in the films, but because
yeah.
we never really have gotten to know these people all that well to see that, but yeah, definitely.
I'm just cracking up about the home court lotion. Courtney Cox's lotion. Oh my god. But I'm on brand, okay?
And it smelled good too.
Thank you, Court. Thanks, Court. So, Jess, let's talk about Sydney and Scream 7, and specifically, like you are a Maureen person in my mind. Like whenever I think of the Patreon, and I think of like the people who could potentially be like, if like I have a Maureen flavored topic, I think of you. I really do. Like you're literally the first person that comes to mind. So I feel like you deeply understand Sydney, and her role in Scream 3 and her arc in Scream 3, and just like the backstory of Maureen and everything that we learned but we never got to see on
Yeah.
film. And you understand this history and this connection that Sydney has with her mother and kind of how she grows and overcomes her issues in her past. So, with that being said, we see Sydney here in Scream 7 with Tatum, her 17-year-old daughter. And I'm just curious, what do you kind of think, what do you predict for this relationship and what we could see in Scream 7?
I mean, I was just kind of like, we've talked about before, not expecting her to have a daughter of that age.
Hmm.
So I do think that potentially because they have her being older, we can get some very honest, like real conversations about Maureen, about like the past that she maybe wouldn't have been able to have with like an elementary school age child. So I do think we're going to see that. I think that they're going to play a lot on it, like history repeating itself, and her trauma will now affect her daughter, and then how that's going to affect Sydney because she's going to be like, now I'm doing this to her like my mom did. So I think we're going to get like a lot of that. I think that like the core of all of the Scream movies has always been like parent-child relationship, and that is something we kind of did keep going throughout 5 and 6 as well,
Hmm.
or they had tried to, so I think that that is always gonna be, like, a core part. I think it's why they're giving her a daughter. I think that's why they're making her older so she can have, like, a serious relationship with her. Obviously, it's pretty clear from the trailer that she's gonna get taken or something along those lines. It looks like she's in, like, the same office Sydney was, in the beginning of the trailer when she first gets the Woodsboro call. Looks like that's where she is when she's doing the whole Ring camera thing, which, by the way, super excited that we're actually getting that. That was one of the other things I had told you that I wanted. That was, like, the, modern technology that I thought we'd get in this one, so I'm glad we are. And that's, like, actually, like, pretty terrifying if you think about it. I thought we were gonna get it like a Ring camera notification come up and it's like, "Ghostface is outside." But this is, like, a very cool security camera way to do it too.
Yeah. Well, so here's a question, so back like as we were musing about Nev returning to the franchise and like envisioning what could Scream 7 really be about. And, for a long time we thought that Sydney's daughters were both or all very, very young. And so this has been kind of a curveball for a lot of folks over the past year, learning that Isabel May was cast and that Sydney has a teenage daughter. So what are your thoughts about like this decision? Do you think it was the right decision? Do you think it was the wrong decision to keep the daughters, to have one daughter who is older to kind of fulfill this teenage prophecy and give Sydney kind of a mirror of her old self in the original? Or do you think that they should have gone like a more Halloween 4 route and have little kids?
I mean, I'm hoping we're getting both.
Hmm.
I guess, have we had confirmation that there's definitely still a younger child?
So yes,
Okay.
there are two other little girls.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So, like, we're really gonna probably get the best of both. Although maybe the little girls aren't going to be in it for all that long. But I think, yeah, I think it was good. I think they're taking little things. I think what was cool about the fourth movie was the teenage cast was good, and we enjoyed what they were doing. We liked Jill. We liked Kirby. So I think that is kind of probably part of why they wanted an older child so they can have that storyline because that's been like a core part of a lot of the original films. But the younger ones is going to be, I mean, if they keep them around, they could get real, real dramatic with that. But I don't, Sydney Prescott doesn't strike me as the type that would keep her two little girls. It seems like she wants all of them to leave, but the older one says she wants to be a fighter like her and stay. So I do think that that's probably kind of right before she gets taken. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy they're doing both. It was cool when the preview came out for 5 and we saw her as a mom pushing like the stroller. So like I'm glad we're gonna finally get to see that because we probably would have seen that in 6 had they had not gone way crossing lines that they should not have crossed with Nev Campbell. But
Exactly.
now we're gonna get it now how it should have been because realistically, I don't think we wanted her in Scream 6.
That's a good question. So, let's just say it's the same quality of movie. It's basically the same script, except we force Sydney into, the shrine, a scene here, a scene there. Maybe she is the one who goes and saves Gail in the apartment. She's not really in the finale. She's not in the first 45 minutes, but she has an even smaller role than she did in Scream 5. Do you think would you have taken that?
I mean, honestly, like I think knowing that 7's coming, I would keep it how it is.
Hmm.
I don't think that she was going to play very important of a role in that movie. It would have been cool to see her with like the shrine stuff and all, but I also think there was like a lot of like unrealistic parts to that. Whereas like to have Sydney there, like wouldn't she have been like, how'd this get here? Like, why did nobody ask any of those questions, you know?
Well, and can I just say about the shrine, if Sydney would have been in the shrine, imagine it just I feel like if Sydney is going to the shrine, it becomes the Sydney scene. There's no way you can realistically play that scene and have it still be focused on Sam and this darkness and ooh, I like to kill people kind of thing and this vibe. It has to be Sydney Prescott is reliving every single fucking memory she's ever had about Ghostface. It can't there's no
Yeah,
room
absolutely.
there's no room for Detective Bailey and Ethan and their bullshit. There's no room for the Carpenter bullshit. It would have to be like a stab 3 level moment. And I don't know, like in some ways, like I respect the hell out of Nev that she wasn't in Scream 6. I really do, in terms of like being the one to walk away and not accept one, professional disrespect after everything that she's done for Scream and after everything she's given to this franchise. But two, I also respect her for not being in a low quality Scream movie. So, and I don't say that as a diss to Courtney Cox, because Courtney Cox got an amazing sequence out of it. I don't hold a single thing about Gail in Scream 6 against Courtney Cox. I think Courtney did the best she could with a truly terrible writing for her.
And I do wonder if like some of that too was like Courtney Cox like not wanting to let the fans down because they were already let down, that she wasn't. But yeah, you're absolutely right. If she was going to be in the Shrine, it would have had to be completely centered around her. It would have been so much more emotional. We would have needed a way better score going on behind it. Like the only little emotional thing we got in that scene was when Gail was looking at the pictures of Dewey. Like, or I guess when Kirby looked at the knife or whatever, but like still, yeah, that would have been a whole different thing. It would have been cool to get to see something like that. It would be cool for them to somehow do something like that brings the past back like that. Maybe that's kind of what we're going to get with like whatever AI or stuff is going to go on. But yeah, I would have definitely not wanted her in that movie because she would have been misused just like Courtney Cox was.
Well, and see, I think that's the thing is like, I think she would have been. It would have been even worse than Scream 5, which Scream 5, the Sidney in Scream 5, I think Nev is wonderful. It's nice to see her, but I do feel like that was my first red flag with Radio Silence, because otherwise I really loved Scream 5 when it came out. But like, I remember leaving that movie feeling so sad and so unfulfilled by Sidney in particular. I thought Gail and Dewey were great. Back then I was more accepting of his death than I am today. But like, I felt so let down by Sidney. Like, I just felt like there was so much potential that wasn't fulfilled.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, I think I don't know if you asked me this question. I don't know how I would answer it, in terms of should she have been in Scream 6? Should she not have been? I don't know, you know? I will end this little thing with saying I think in some ways Scream 6 would have been a better movie if like we kept it in New York. Gail was the one who was attacked. Let's just say that her big attack scene, in New York, maybe like we see her at her news studio and the first act really focuses on her, and the first act kind of ends with her big apartment attack, and then Sidney comes to New York, and then she gets to go into the Shrine, and like, a much different story. I think that's the way you do it, not by forcing some weird thing. I have to ask you, what are your thoughts on what Skeet Ulrich said recently about Molten Sam, and that he signed up to do a 3-picture movie where Billy Loomis, the ghost of Billy Loomis, would slowly be turning his daughter into a serial killer.
I think it's crazy that he did come out and say that, because I'm wondering if that's something they wanted him to address in case they're not fully aware if they're going to ever return back to that. But I mean, do I get it? Like, yes. Do I think like the serial killer, like dark storylines, like very popular, like especially in these days, the new Dexter like series coming back and everything, like people are really into like siding with the bad guy. So I could see why they were going there. It just would have been not like realistic at all. If it was going to be like that, you needed to have her be like a lot more unhinged, like right from the beginning, and not just like suddenly switch it up. Like all of the sudden she's just gonna like not care about her sister and all of that and just start killing people. Although they kind of made Tara go a little wild at the end of 6 too. But yeah, I don't think I would have liked that. I did like that he was involved, like seeing Scream 5 and him being there, even though like that was like horrible like aging that they had going on. Like, or why would she be seeing him in like the outfit he was killed in when like I don't know, but I would not have liked that. It would have been super weird. I get where they were trying to go with it, but they're not, I don't think, like, the writers of 5 and 6 were not on the type of level of writing that would have made that make sense emotionally, that you could accept it. It would have been cool, sure. It would have been a different twist on Scream, but it wouldn't have been Scream.
Right. And I think, like, I'm a little less forgiving than you are. I think you're a little bit more open-minded to it than I am. I am, like, completely, like, I think it would have ruined the franchise. I think we wouldn't be getting a Scream. We wouldn't be getting the Sidney Sir. Let's just say this could have been, the movie we're getting now could have been Scream 8, after they did this movie. I don't think we would be getting it. I think it would have damaged Scream so much. You just can't pull off that type of story here. And like, Wes Craven, he always defines Scream by good triumphing over evil and good not being tainted by evil. Part of his philosophy was that Sidney was not changed by the bad things that happened to her in a dark way. And Sam's storyline is literally, she's becoming becoming more and more of a murderer the more she goes through this. And like there's just kind of like a really nasty kind of like metaphors about like mental illness and like, schizophrenia and like, this is why she likes killing people and it's okay. And it's just like, I don't know. I just,
Like, yeah, that's not really what that means.
yeah. And like, I just feel like Scream 6 was trying to have its cake and eat it too. It was trying to kind of lead us into this moment of Sam becoming Ghostface, but it was also asking us to cheer her on as though she was heroic and moral and she was the good guy. And I can't do that. I can't watch the ending of Scream 6 and think
Yeah.
that Sam is the good guy. I just can't. I just don't think if you are as a character enjoy killing people, I think that's a deal breaker for me as an audience member.
Yeah, especially if you weren't like that from the start, you know what I mean? Like, it really would have made no sense. It's kind of like saying, like, how would you have felt if the twist at the end of Scream 3 was Sidney was the killer? Like, that wouldn't have
Exactly.
made sense. I mean, we never got deep into Sam's story the way we were into Sydney's, but maybe if we got deeper into Sam, I could have, like, accepted some, but all we did was, like, little breadcrumbs about, like, mental illness or this or that, and it's like, none of that is, like, an acceptable, like, the conclusion would be she would turn into a killer. And then they would have, like you're saying, it wouldn't have been like, "She's the killer, she's the bad guy now." It would have been like, "She's the killer and we love it." Like, they would want the fans to love it, and, like, she'd be, like, what, like, a vigilante, like, going after the bad guys? Like, that's just ridiculous.
Well, so let's go back to Sydney here now. Like, what kind of mom do you think Sydney is going to be? What do you think we're going to see of her?
I think she's gonna be a good mom. That was one of the things that I had jotted down to bring up. I remember that she did an interview or something where she said something along the lines of like, "Yeah, and you'll get to see like what kind of parenting style like Sydney chooses to have." And that was always interesting to me. For before we knew, like, their names and stuff, I wondered if, like, the new Mark was gonna be the dad of the oldest daughter and Sydney wasn't the mom.
Hmm.
However, like, her name's Tatum. She's obviously Sydney's.
That would have been a hell of a
But
coincidence.
right, right. Like, but I think she's gonna be, she's gonna be like super mom. She's gonna protect her kids. I mean, why wouldn't she? She's done that for complete strangers basically throughout other movies. So she's like obviously going to protect her children. If we didn't have rumors of other movies, I would like absolutely be worried that maybe they'd have her die protecting her kids. But I don't fear that at all. I think if anyone's gonna die protecting Sydney's kids, it's probably Gail.
I believe it or not, I think that I think Gail is going to be safe here. I think that down the road, maybe in Scream 8 or Scream 9, I think Courtney wants to go to Scream 9. I just have a feeling. But I think Gail, if and when she dies, I think it would be protecting Sydney and her family or, one of Sydney's daughters. I think that like it would be such a great storyline and such a tragedy for Sydney to lose her husband and the girls to lose their father
Yeah.
to keep the story going and develop, a trilogy arc with 8 and 9. So I don't know. But in terms of like, Sydney as like a different person than who we have known her to be, we've never seen Sydney Prescott, the mom, when her kids are under attack, when Ghostface is coming for her family, her offspring, the people who came out of her womb. What do you think we'll see differently in Sydney here than we have seen from Sydney in the past?
I think we'll probably see a lot quicker to, kill if she has to kill. I think she's going to be a lot more unhinged as a mother than she was as any other character. And also, like, she already knows what it's like to like not have her mom. So like that's the last thing she's gonna like want to happen to her, not just the older one, all of them. I think she's probably gonna be way overprotective in a lot of ways, but I don't think necessarily in a like, oh, you can't hang out with your friends type way. In like a we have 95 security cameras, like I have your location on your Apple Watch at all times, like type of mom. But yeah, I think we're probably gonna get to see like emotions from her that we haven't seen before because like we've seen little glimpses of her like being in love, but we haven't really like had a full out like story of her, somebody she loved enough to get married to and trust. So like I think we're definitely getting a different version of her than we've seen before. At the core, she'll still be like who she is. And the more I think about it, like I do agree with you. I don't think we're losing Sydney or Gail just because Kevin's not really like a 3-act writer. He's like a 8-season writer.
Mhm.
So, like, he's thinking in the future when he does his writing. So, now that we know we have him in this one, I would assume that every piece of 7 is in somehow leading up to more of a story.
Yeah. Well, so I have to ask, do you think I imagine that Sydney, if I had to make a prediction that she is going to be the strict mom as it pertains to her and Mark. I just have this feeling that like Sydney's going to be the strict firm parent and Mark is going to be the fun parent. I know that sounds silly because he's literally the sheriff of Pine Grove, right? So I mean, he could be very strict as well, but I feel like Sydney's going to be more of a hard ass about parenting than Mark is. I think Mark's gonna be the softer, more human, like, the one that the kids run to for cuddles, whereas Sydney is going to be kind of not the ice queen, but very, very strict with her children out of protection and out of like a sense of discipline. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that, I think. I think they probably kinda knew what they were doing with casting, Joel McHale, like, unless they were trying to like, switch it up on us and he's gonna be one of the Ghostface. I think casting somebody who we know is like a caring, funny guy, it's like makes sense that that's who she'd go for. The one person we saw her like most like in pain about dying, Eric, he was obviously like a playful, dance around on the tables like kind of person. So I do agree that that's probably the type of dad he will be. I don't think is he definitely a cop or is he like a security guard? Do we know for sure?
He's the sheriff from
He
what I
is the
understand.
sheriff?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's I mean, also a little bit like that she wound up with kinda like with her own Dewey like version of Dewey, which is cute because that's probably the only, like, present male person throughout her life. Obviously her dad, but, like, we don't really see much of him.
Yeah.
Do we think we're ever gonna hear more about him?
I can't imagine they'll go through this film and not mention whether he's alive or not.
Yeah.
I think that there'll be a passing line about grandpa died in 2010 or something like
Yeah, because I mean, I know they cut that scene where they talked about it in the other movie, so yeah, it would be cool to hear something. I think there has to be a mention of him because Maureen is gonna be part of this storyline because, like, Sydney's a mom now, so not addressing the fact that her mother's role in her life would just be, like, crazy. That has to be, like, a huge storyline in this. I could see her being, like, really strict. Maybe you're right. I was feeling like she'd be a little bit more, like, playful and want her kids to have, like, a happy life that she maybe didn't get.
that. Yeah.
But, yeah, the opposite of that could be that she's super strict because she doesn't want them to have the life that she got.
Yeah, I just think that Sydney's gonna be a very warm person to the town. I can see her being very friendly with like the townsfolk, but when it comes to parenting and when it comes to her rules, like her children will follow her rules, and she's going to be very protective and not allow for slip ups. So, and that kind of leads into my next question is about Tatum. Is like we're obviously heading for the Halloween H2O kind of relationship written by Kevin Williamson.
Right.
Between Laurie Strode and John Tate in terms of just like, anytime in horror movies you have an adult and a child, parent and child, that there is a conflict, that they kind of butt heads. And this is so prime, right? You can just, this writes itself in a way. Like, Sydney kind of being too strict as a mom, wanting to be overprotective, and Tatum being spunkier, like the original Tatum, and kind of
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries of her rules, but also maybe just wanting to step up and be more involved to be more of the fighter, that Sydney doesn't want her to be.
Yeah, and also maybe the oldest daughter, like, maybe Tatum is the one that got, like, the most strict version of Sydney because that's, like, her firstborn, and since she has gotten through how she's gonna be at least, what, 16 to 18, something along those lines, maybe it's the little kids that she's not as strict with, or maybe she is just like, "Alright, pack up and go." Because where would they realistically if Mark would be taking them somewhere, but he's in enough of the scenes that I would say he probably doesn't.
Hmm.
So, like, who would have the little kids except for maybe grandpa?
Yeah. Yeah. Or grandma, Mark's mom.
That's true, yeah.
I'm gonna make a prediction about Sydney's motherhood. I think that like Scream 7, we're gonna hear about Maureen. Maybe we'll see Maureen, in a photograph or in AI herself. I think that like Maureen will be under the subtext of it. She may be mentioned, but I think that like where we're gonna really get more Maureen, and like kind of a throwback to that old storyline is in a Scream 8 or a Scream 9, where Sydney is kind of reflecting on this parallel between, she's now the mom. She is now in Maureen's shoes, and like, Tatum is now in her shoes, or and like maybe a reflection upon that after the events of this movie. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I hope we're gonna get that. That's my main thought. I think there's so much material that you can do with that. I'd be interested too. Like, question for you: like, do you think, now that we're back with Sydney and Maureen is probably in the storyline? I don't know about. I mean, AI Maureen would be pretty creepy, but like, do you think we're gonna get some of like the Sydney that we saw in the first movies, where we saw like how emotionally like distraught she was about that stuff, where she's like calling out for Dewey when she's scared and all that? Because we didn't really get that in five. We just kind of get like, hey, I'm here, we're gonna take care of business, and I'm going.
I hope that we get the emotional Sydney. I think that we will, because I think that the key to getting that emotional Sydney is through her children, and is through Tatum. And I think that like the most emotional and aggressive Sydney is going to be, and most reactive she's going to be, is through her children. You know what I mean? I feel like Radio Silence, they kind of put her in this box of being almost like superhuman, like Linda Hamilton and Terminator in Scream 5. And I think the way you kind of punch out of that persona is by making it as personal as it can possibly be. And, messing with, Sydney's already been messed with, but how do you one up somebody who is dead inside for themselves? You go after their kids and they just become
Yeah.
a new ferocious beast.
Yeah. And I mean, you're right. That's literally what I would become if somebody went after my son. So that's what I do become. So
I love it.
100%. Yeah. I hope
Thing
we get to see all of it.
Is there anything else you want to share about anything regarding Sydney and the real Scream 7?
I mean, no, I mean, I literally feel like no matter what it is, it's gonna be good. So I'm just kind of like ready, excited to see it. I'm not nervous that it's not gonna be good, like at all. Where I felt that way, where I wasn't sure about the other movies, but like I am not nervous at all. Like I feel like we're getting a great movie. It's gonna set up new movies. We're gonna get all of the little connections to like Wes's storytelling and the scripts that we like. I don't think we're gonna be disappointed, and I think seeing Sydney as a mom is gonna be what is the emotional stuff that you're talking about, but I just think that's, like, the logical next step of where we're gonna go. It's the only way to, like, continue to have, like, the heart in the films, and I'm glad we're going back there because we veered away from it for long enough now.
And I would even go as farther than just to say the heart. I just feel like Sydney is, her story is Scream. You know what I mean? I just feel like we are returning to the real Scream in a sense, with returning to Nev and to Sydney's story. And I think that Kevin being at the helm as opposed to Radio Silence, I think that there is just a spiritual thing that's going to be more recognizable to everybody about this movie, like original fans of the first four movies.
Yeah.
That we're, even if it's not a perfect movie, the focus on Sydney, Kevin's spirit, and continuing on that original storyline, and yet introducing this new aspect of Sydney, which is being a mother and her family being attacked. I think it's going to bring out the most amazing things in her as a character, Nev as an actress, and frankly, Kevin as a storyteller.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's where we should be. To like prepare for this, I watched the theatrical trailers for all six of them.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, it really is like the theme throughout all of them is the Hello Sydney, and the fact that like you don't get that in the sixth trailer does totally change it. And 5 and 6 give away so much in their trailers, so much more than the original. 7 is a lot like the original trailers, so I'm very excited to see how the movie is like the original films.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a funny observation you have about the trailers there. Now that I'm going through them, I'm like, yeah, you're right. That is
Yeah,
true.
absolutely. Watch all six. It's crazy. Like there's so many there, even just like the way they're filmed and like the words and the voiceovers are basically the same for 1, 2, 3, and now 7, but 4, 5, 6. 4 is still good, but it goes off course a little bit in the trailer. It doesn't have the like opening scene shown. Neither does 3. 3 doesn't show the opening scene in the trailer either, which was also a thing. That was my only other question I had for you about the trailer. Do you feel like there's any realm where like that's not the opening scene?
Yeah. Yeah, why not? I mean, that could be the epilogue. That could be a stab movie.
They showed a lot of it, and that wasn't something I was expecting to see that much of it, just because of all the criticism about how much you saw from in like 5. So I wasn't expecting that. So I'm just kind of like, I'm hoping that is just kind of like to throw us off and it's something else.
Well, the way I see it is like they had to show us something. We had to see something to hook us. And the idea of the Mocker house burning to the ground, that is stunning, you know? That is shocking. It is notable. It is noteworthy. It's something that you can easily comment on. An average person could easily comment on. But then doing that and then just giving us Sydney and Tatum and a little bit of Gale, like, and not showing anything else, I think that actually hides most of the movie really well, you know?
Yeah, it was perfect. Chef's kiss, perfect.
So before we go, I wanted to just give Jess this little opportunity because, like, she is one of my Maureen people, and Joey Valisi, the arc of his final script for the podcast, the final Scream episode 275, which just released on December 19th. So if you haven't listened, go check it out. But the arc of it, in my opinion, is he calls it a rebirth, but I call it a prequel. Like, Scream, 2 did sequels, Scream 4 did remakes, Scream 5 did requels. I see what we did with 9 in the final Scream as we were doing the prequel, because the finale it's the arc of it is that there's a teenage girl, and her mother was having an affair with Mark Kincaid, Sydney's husband, and the woman was Sydney's best friend, and then she is executed Maureen Prescott style. And it's like the killers are trying to make this new teenage girl into the new Sydney, for lack of a better phrase. So I just wanted to get Jess's opinion on this, and your point of view, because you have wanted a Maureen Prescott murder scene reenacted in a Scream movie. And I would love it. I would love to see it. If we don't get it, Joey gave us the next best thing, and he also gave us something that was just imaginative to make it kind of like the centerpiece of the finale. And we were doing this like big like circle with the beginning and the end, like they're both meeting at the same point. So, what were your thoughts on that development in the script?
I literally loved everything about it. I loved how I was obviously already like trying to be paying attention to a Maureen angle because you sort of made a comment to me about that you knew I was going to like this one. So I knew it would somehow connect to that or to 3.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I loved it. I think I think I told you when I texted you right after I finished listening to it, like there's so many good things about it, but like I was a little bit not happy at first with the Mark Kincaid having the affair angle, but then I realized that because I was so irritated by that, I wasn't at all thinking about the woman having the affair and her daughter and it mimicking like that. So it was still like a surprise when that happened. And there's just so many like little things. But yeah, finally getting to see that is great. And he did write it like very violent, exactly how like I imagined Maureen's death as you know, like, and it was great. And it almost like hurts to read or hear, like listen to something so good because you're like, oh my God, I hope what we get is this good. And it's also awesome that you guys put it out first because, we don't know that they're not going to do some of that
Mm-hmm.
in this one. No, it was so great. I don't know how much input you had into like the storylines and what, but it was brilliant. I think it was really good. It was the best of the 3.
Thank you. I mean, I had zero input in this story this time. Joey basically said, "This is what we're doing," and I was there just as the cheerleader to be like, "Oh my God, this is great," and like, cheering him on as he wrote. But I was the sole performer, and I kind of lived this script. And even though like he wrote it, in a way, I got to live it in a different way, and I'm very proud of that script. I'm very proud. Like when people think of scripts by Ryan C. Showers, the podcast, I want them to think of this one. This is the one I'm most proud of
Yeah.
from like a technical point of view. I spent a lot of time just in making the episode and like performing it and recording it, and I couldn't be happier and more proud of like kind of ending on such a high note and giving these 3 scripts in between Scream 6 and Scream 7. So
It's crazy that they were all in between those 2 films. It feels like it's been so long. Well, it has been so long. No, you did really great. It was very much like you could listen to it and you could tell the different characters. You didn't have to pay attention to which names you were saying. I told you I was listening to it in the car with my son, and he was literally only in the car for like 10 minutes, but it was the part with Mark getting attacked and like his Achilles tendon. And my son just had surgery, Achilles lengthening surgery. So like that was like especially like a type of stab wound that was getting to him. And we were both just like wincing in the car. You read it really well. You acted it out really well. It would be so cool to have like some like low budget like ability to make these like films. It would be so much fun. But yeah, this one was the best. Yeah, and you can tell you put a lot of effort into the reading. The storyline was great. I love the sheriff star. So like yeah, it was perfect. And honestly, the dialogue was so accurate as to how those characters would talk, and then
Yeah.
you read it really well. Like, I could just see it, especially, like, for some reason, Mark Kincaid to me, like, the dialogue for him was so dead on
Yeah.
to that actor and how he would say things. It made me think of Grey's Anatomy a couple of times since he literally has an affair on that show.
Yeah.
So I was, like, thinking, "Yeah, you guys both did really great. You should be really proud. I think people are gonna love it." And, I mean, there's things that those are gonna, like, live on forever.
Yeah, they are. They are. And like even when I stop doing the podcast, which will be never, they will, be there for people. But the thing I just want to end on is like so first of all, I'm just happy that you, the Maureen Prescott person, were satisfied with that arc. And like you have no idea, Jess, the number of times I wanted to text you about this, especially when I was doing the last 30 pages of that script. I was like, I want to tell someone so bad. So, but I didn't. I kept it a secret so you could
No,
enjoy
I'm
it.
glad you did it. I'm glad you didn't ruin it. I love spoilers, you know that. I love spoilers, but no, I'm glad I didn't see that being what we were getting at all, and it was great.
Awesome. Well, Jess, please tell everybody where they can find you online.
God, I mean, I guess just Instagram, CRS_Jess. I wouldn't say I'm very much of a internet, what's the right word, like influencer? I don't even know what to say. I'm not really putting out material for people, but I'm certainly watching other people's material.
Well, I love you a lot, Jess. Like I feel like you just really you get the podcast and you get what I'm trying to do. And I really felt I feel seen and like acknowledged by you in a really special way. So thank you for everything you've done to help make the podcast better.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
And just for perspective, where do you predict Scream 7 is going to fall in your ranking?
Ooh, I mean, I'm hopeful that it's gonna come right after 312.
Mm-hmm.
That would be nice, but I'm okay with it being, like, maybe after 4. I'm pretty sure I don't even have to watch it to say it's gonna come before 5 and 6, but who knows? I mean, if it doesn't, I would literally be baffled.
Me
So,
too.
yeah, I'm hoping it's gonna fall maybe it'll go right up to the front. I find that hard to believe because I'm a diehard Scream 3 person, but maybe it'll be 3, 7, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6.
Everything you just heard of Jess, I co-sign. That's literally like being in the mind of Ryan C. Showers. That's exactly what I think for myself. So, well, Jess, I love you. Thank you for everything.
I love you too, thank you.
Hey, Ash.
Hi, everybody.
So, Ash, before we get started with the song this week, please tell everybody where they can find you online.
You can find me at SquirrelandSpud9 on Instagram. There you'll find my account, all my personal ramblings of, Taylor Swift, Scream, all of those things. But most importantly, every Wednesday you'll find the Scream game of the week. And Ryan and I try to do a fun post every Wednesday to try to get your Scream knowledge a go in, or maybe just to see who like your favorite character is. And I'm not gonna lie, we have a lot of fun with them. I love getting the post ready and waking up every Wednesday and seeing all the answers.
We've had some great games over the year. Also recently, I think that like Ashley's so creative and fun. So I hope that everyone please go check out Ashley's game and comment and play the game. So because you never know who's gonna pop up. So
And also, I love telling people that they're wrong. So
yeah,
I love being like, woohoo, you're right. But then I also love being like, ha ha ha, not quite right there.
sucker. Okay,
Exactly.
it's very Monica Geller of you too. Like
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
wow. All right. Well, Ash, what is the Taylor Swift song of the day?
The Taylor Swift song of the day is Right Where You Left Me. Now, this is off of Evermore, which came out in 2022. It is track 16, right? Written by Taylor Swift and Aaron Dessner, produced by them as well. And if I were to describe what this song is, it's about being frozen in time due to heartbreak.
Well, this is a very interesting song. And if you would have told me like that I would be doing a segment on this song in particular, so soon into the podcast, and we haven't even been doing this for a full year yet, I would have probably been like, huh, interesting. Because like I was never a stan of the song. And a lot of Swifties swear by this song being like, that it's one of the greatest things ever. And I never got it. Like I liked the song. I liked, whatever. But there was maybe something about like the production of it that kind of like kept me at a distance until I needed this song. And like there's a great quote out there that's floating around online where you may not love Taylor Swift until you need her. And I think that applies here to this specific song because like one day I happened to have been listening to it. It was in November, Evermore month. And my favorite album is Evermore. And it's always ranked towards the bottom for me. Like I got it, but I didn't get it, And then one day I finally had my moment with it where I completely understood every single syllable, every second, what she was doing with this, the story she was telling, and the meaning behind the story, and how it applies to me and how I understood and related to it. I feel like there was a before and after times, and I'm in the after times where this song just means kind of the world to me. It's now like a top 10 song of all time. Like, that's how much I deeply, deeply, deeply love this song, Right Where You Left Me.
Also love Right Where You Left Me. I feel like I kind of had the same journey with
Good.
it where I was like, "Oh, I really like this song," but it wasn't like the standout to me, and then all of a sudden, it's like I feel like everybody has this with certain, like, movies or forms of art where, you hear it and you're like, "Oh my goodness, this" it's like right when you needed it, she gave it to you. And I completely agree that you don't love or you don't know Taylor Swift until you need her, and, I have truly needed her in the past, and I think that if this song would have come out when I was younger, it would have made me spiral. Like, it would have
Yeah.
made me just lose it in, like, a really good way of being like, "Oh, great." Because I think there is something about heartbreak and losing where you just feel kind of frozen in time and you don't wanna like, I don't know how to describe it, like, you don't wanna get out of the heartbreak because it feels good to be there because at least you have, like, some sort of answer, but, like, you don't but and you're also being like, "Well, what if? Like, what if they change their mind? What if they come back?" And, eventually, like, you realize, like, "Yeah, that's not gonna happen." But I
Sometimes it
think
takes people a long time to get to that
preaching to the choir of
point.
girl who waited way too long. Like, we're talking, like, 10 plus years, like, having, like, little, like, moments of blips of people throughout, but it was just like, "Okay, well, I guess this guy will do." That's so mean.
Thanks, Garrett.
That's so mean. No, I mean and then I met Garrett, yeah, thankfully. I remember telling him about this person that I, like, liked for a long time, and I was like, "Well, I kind of like this person, but, like, we're, like, all friends, so, like, I hope that's not awkward for you, but, like, I have, like, a really good group of friends for me, but I did kind of like one for a while," wanting to be honest with him, and he was like, "Oh, well, if something would have happened, it would have happened already." And I'm gonna be like, "1, thank you for slapping me across the face of, like, that was so mean," and, like, in my heart, it was mean, but it also, like, didn't hurt at all, like, it was like, "Thank you so much for saying that," like, yeah, if it like, it would have happened already, but yeah, like, when you meet somebody and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, I forgot all about that person."
You know, the way that you just
No
said
longer
about
frozen by
slap,
time.
I feel like, oh, wow, maybe this is partly the slap of Alicia Florrick too. Maybe she was at the restaurant and like Diane's slap woke her up, but that's a good wife
Mhm.
reference for people. But don't worry, we are going to get to Scream here because I do have a very strong Scream connection here with this song. But like, we're going to talk a little bit more about like the personal, then we'll talk about Scream and then we're going to go through the lyrics. And I'm basically I'm going to read the whole song just because like, this is like, I just love this song so much. Like, whenever you think of Taylor Swift or whenever people talk about Taylor Swift and maybe you don't get the songwriting or you don't get why she is so hyped up. This is a song I would recommend to people to listen to because she tells such a succinct story. This could almost be a standalone movie. In fact, our friend Mark Vieira, he wrote a play for one of his screenwriting classes about this song, and like adapted like the song into a 10-page short play about a gay couple and like they're in a breakup and one person, he's at the restaurant, right? So it was really well done. But like it just also captures like the theme of Evermore as an album overall so well because Evermore is an album about endings and not really knowing that the end is near, that the end is happening, but not wanting to confront it. And this song is the song, And again, like I've talked about my beef with Joe Alwyn recently, and I just feel like Taylor pours herself into the song of like the fact that like, like I want to be with Joe so much. I'm giving you everything and you're not picking up what I'm putting down. You're not reciprocating it. And I think part of like the influence with the song and why she wrote the song is she was afraid she was wasting all of this time being frozen. But at the same time, she was still into being frozen. She was still so into it and committed to the idea. This is part of like the journey of her moving on from that is like, and there's a tragedy in that too, is like you being afraid of like being frozen in time with somebody who probably won't be there for you in the end, but you still can't move on because you're so connected and attached. And the thing is like, I'm sure people have gotten this vibe. I am an attacher. Okay. I hold on to everything. I hold on to everything out of like pure, just like nostalgia and attachment, out of hope, out of grudges that I hold. It is really hard for me to move on once I set my mind or heart to something. I think the song is so beautiful, and also just the succinct story it tells, like the graphic words that Taylor uses here, the descriptions. You can picture every single moment, every single sound, the metaphors, and it just all makes complete and perfect sense. This could be a movie. I can literally picture like a montage in my head, as the song goes on. So, Ash, any thoughts?
I love how you said it's like a movie because that's what I picture this. Like, I feel like you could make like the best short film ever of just, I mean, or a full movie too, of just this person sitting in the corner of a restaurant and everything's happening, the hustle and bustle of life is happening around them. And I think the term restaurant is used as like literally, but also like a metaphor in the situation of being like, I'm still like here, like I'm moving around my life, but I'm still in that spot where I was when you ended this relationship, and I can't move past it. I can't get past what happened. And I feel like everybody's kind of been there in some sort of heartbreak where it's really hard to move past it. But this song is so fun. It's also one of the songs that Taylor Swift messes up when she tries to perform it. She'll mess it up and be like, "Oh crap, I've got to start over." Because one funny thing about Taylor is if she messes up a song, she tends to start it over because she's like, "You paid to come and see this, so I'm gonna do it right."
Well, the thing about this too is like I understand why she would mess it up, even as somebody who wrote it, because it's such a complicated song and the words are so specific and beautiful, and like you couldn't, if you changed anything, the song would change. Everything here is so perfectly constructed. I think it's one of the best songs she's ever written. I know I say that about every song, but before we get into the lyrics here, what if you had to guess what the Scream connection I'm going to make is? What would you guess it would be?
Gail not being
No,
able to
go,
move
but
on.
go on. Actually, Roman, that would fit too. Roman being stuck at the restaurant of like the abandonment of Maureen and kind of the injustice he feels there. But where I was going more so is Sidney in Scream 3 kind of being stuck in this funk of her mom and not knowing everything about her mom, and she is like metaphorically still stuck at that restaurant, like the whole movie she's just constantly consumed by not only her mother's death but what she doesn't know about Maureen and how that's been weaponized against her, and what she still doesn't know, and how frustrated she is with Maureen that she had all these secrets and that they're still being uncovered. And by the end of the movie, I think she does leave the restaurant because she really finds out everything there is to know about Maureen with through the finale with Roman. Like she leaves the restaurant. That's the her opening the gate with the dog. That's her leaving the restaurant. But I think about that scene with Sidney and Kincaid in the station where she's talking about and just so like kind of frustrated with like I don't know who my mom was, and she had this whole other life, and it turns out that I had all these secrets, that I didn't even know about. I think that is the restaurant Sydney is at. You could say that she's been at that restaurant since Maureen was killed. She's been at that restaurant. She was at that restaurant in Scream 1, but specifically, I think the best example of it is in Sydney in Scream 3, being frozen in time. I mean, we literally see it in this like in the Stab 3 set again. Like she walks through and just she's still stuck there. She's stuck at her mom's murder scene. She's stuck in the Billy of it all. She's stuck in the Schumacher house. She's frozen in time in that moment.
I feel like I should get my producer credits taken away for the fact that I didn't guess Scream 3. Duh. Where could Ryan be going with this? What, like, and if you don't know, that should be the most obvious guess. I was just like, Gail? But no, I love that. I think that makes complete sense of, and what I love about the story of Maureen and like Sydney not understanding her is that I don't think, when I really think about it, I don't think Maureen fully understood herself, and like I don't think you can fully like process like that all of those things that we know that Maureen went through. And like to be honest, like we don't know why she made all of the choices that she made, or even like from her perspective, like I would love to hear like read Maureen's journals and like really hear it from her perspective of like what was really, really going on. Like maybe there was more than just like a physical relationship between her and Mr. Loomis. Like maybe there was something she was getting from that she needed, which not saying was appropriate, but I love that Maureen also feels like she was kind of stuck. Like, and I feel like when we talk about Sydney and Maureen, I feel like I'm always saying, I feel like they both could relate to this in different ways. And because they both experienced something so scary and so traumatic that it kind of just like might have put them in a time where they were moving on and like life was going past, but they weren't able to fully feel everything and like go through life the way that they wanted to. And I love what you said about Scream 3. I think it makes complete sense, and if you haven't listened to Where You Left Me, please listen to it because it's not it's a song that I feel like can make somebody a Swiftie.
Well, and also like the phrase "help, I'm still at the restaurant." I feel like Maureen's version of that could have been "help, I'm still at the front door," meaning I'm at the front door that I opened when Roman was knocking at it, and that's just like I feel like that's the frozen in time she's at. Maybe that's and like I think that's kind of like possibly why she goes off the deep end and really starts to sleep around more. And there's a trauma there that she's working through, and I think that like Maureen was frozen in time. Maybe she was frozen in time basically from the events of Hollywood. Who knows? But I think that Roman reappears. I think that does freeze her, whether we know it or not, whether Sidney knew it or not. And maybe that's also that it's like the domino effect is the generational trauma. Then it leads into Sidney being frozen in time because Maureen gets killed. It's so complex and yeah, beautiful. So
I love how art can make you think about another form of art that you love, and I love doing the Taylor Swift songs because I always come up with, like, a different way of, like, looking at them, but I also love how it can give us, like, perspective on Maureen as more of a person than just, like, this sometimes her character is really judged, like, sometimes people are like, "Oh, like, this is all her fault," and I'm like, "No, it's not!" Like, did she make a maybe like, I don't know why she made her decisions, but she didn't stab anybody. Like, I was like, she didn't do that.
listen, my favorite, the more I think about it and the more I kind of like think about my own place with Scream is like where I'm at with Scream. Like what Scream means most to me is the Maureen backstory, not only with Sidney and how we see it explored in 1 and 3, but also just like what we don't get to see. What, the Roman of it all with Maureen, the Billy and Stu of it all with Roman, that the whole mythology of the things that are talked about and the things that definitely happened that we just never got to visually see, but they are the storyline of the movies. Like that's so cool to me. I kind of broke down like the parts of the song with with a caption. The beginning part, I think what she's saying with all of these examples is she's saying everything is always changing except for me because I'm in this moment. I'm stuck here and it's not changing. I'm frozen here. So basically, here we go. She says, friends break up, friends get married. Strangers get born, strangers get buried. Trends change, rumors fly through new skies, but I'm right where you left me. Matches burn after the other, pages turn and stick to each other. Wages earned and lessons learned, but I'm right where you left me. Like, I just think like you can visualize each of these examples that show the changing aspects of life and the evolution of life and like how things are always, nothing stays the same, unless if you force it to stay the same. It's just the examples she uses here are so, so beautiful.
I completely agree. I'm like, I don't have any you said it perfectly.
So then she goes on to describe herself and like her and her in this moment and what isn't changing about her. She says, "Help, I'm still at the restaurant, sitting in the corner I haunt, cross-legged in the dim light. They say, what a sad sight. I swear you could hear a hairpin drop right when I felt the moment stop. Glass shattered on the white cloth. Everybody moved on. I stayed here. Dust collected on my pinned up hair. They expected me to find somewhere, some perspective, but I sat and stared right where you left me." I just, again, like how can you not picture her perfectly what is going on in this scene? How, not only literally like what's going on in the scene, but how she feels in the scene and how she is subjectively is experiencing it, like hearing the hairpin drop, the glass shattered on the white cloth. It's just like, it's like in a movie when like, slow motion starts to happen. You know what I mean?
No, completely. I think I've always pictured it like a slow motion realization of what's happening. And I've always like pictured like literally like a person aging in the same spot, but like everybody is staying the same age. Like and like
Yep.
she's just slowly like getting older, but like all like the waiters and stuff like are changing and all the servers and the people like dining there are all constantly the same age, if that makes sense. And she's aging and she's like not being able to like get to that like her youthful vibrant that she had before this heartbreak. And I feel like that makes sense for Sydney in Scream 3 too, of her being like, can I just get back to feeling happy and content? And like I feel like we see like a bit like a glimmer of it at the beginning of Scream 3. And then it just like the rug is pulled from underneath her or the tablecloth or whatever it is like
When
pulled out and
Cotton is murdered, when she's watching the
yes,
TV and Cotton, she hears that Cotton's murdered.
yes.
That is
Help,
you can hear a
I'm
hairpin
still
drop.
in my kitchen watching holding
the
dog
dog
food. I
food.
think that's what she's doing.
Help! I'm still in the
Help.
kitchen.
Still.
Right when the moment stopped, everybody moved on. Cherokee moved on, but I stayed here.
Oh, rest R.I.P. Cherokee.
Okay, so the next one is the bridge, and I really like this because there's a line in here that I use all the time about myself because it's true. So, okay. She says, "Did you ever hear about the girl who got frozen? Time went on for everybody else. She won't know it. She's still 23 inside her fantasy. How it was supposed to be. Did you hear about the girl who lives in delusion? Breakups happen every day. You don't have to lose it. She's still 23 inside her fantasy, and you're sitting in front of me. Ashley, I am the girl who lives in delusion."
I mean, I still think Taylor Swift could be my friend somehow, so me too.
It's funny because like whenever I hear that line, the first one, "Did you ever hear about the girl who got frozen?" I think of the movie Frozen when Anna gets frozen and Elsa's there, with her. I don't know why. This is,
No, I
but
think about that too.
so.
I
But
love
this
that
is like so
movie.
interesting because like she says how it was supposed to be. And I definitely get hung up on how things are supposed to be or how I think of something and then it doesn't go that way. And then I get stuck on it. It's like, but it was supposed to be this way. It's such a beautiful, concise, clearly communicated idea of what she's feeling here in this moment as she's sitting here at the restaurant.
I always really like this, like looking back on this album now, seeing where Taylor's life is at this moment, and just kind of thinking like, it makes me kind of sad thinking that maybe she had what she thought she deserved. You know what I mean? Like being like, maybe she thought what she had was what was right. And that's not for me to like put anything harsh on anybody. That's just saying sometimes you think you're in the right situation and you're not. And clearly being stuck at a restaurant, however you want to think about this as like a metaphor or literally or whatever, is like probably not the best place to be. I mean, unless they have really, really good breadsticks.
Then we end the song, and it's a very tragic ending, but it's beautiful because, like, while she's stuck at the restaurant and frozen in time, one could look at the being frozen in time as two ways. You could look at it as like she's frozen because from the shock of it, from the emotional shock of it, the devastation, but also frozen like, well, if I just stay here, then one day he will come back. One day I will get what I want if I just stay right in this place. And one day everything will change and it will be back to normal. And so here we go. So she says, "I'm sure you've got a wife out there, kids and Christmas, but I'm unaware, 'cause I'm right where you left me. I cause no harm, mind my business. If our love died young, I can't bear witness, and it's been so long, but if you ever think you got it wrong, I'm still at the restaurant. I'm right where you left me." Whew, sad, very sad.
That just made me think of like being like a princess stuck in a tower. And then I made me think about how she says, I was in my tower and then you came and got me. A happy life.
Well, so and this comes full circle, this song, and why it kind of came back into the ether, not only for the month of Evermore in November, but because of Travis Kelce and the song Opalite. Taylor, it's a very fun, upbeat song. It's like, oh, I finally found what I've been looking for in a way. Though there's a line in it where she says, "I finally left the table," meaning I finally left the table of the restaurant where I've been stuck, frozen in time. So it all comes full circle. Taylor left the restaurant. We're happy for her. Sidney, I think, has left the restaurant. We'll see. We'll see what Scream 7 deals us with Sidney being at a restaurant or not. We'll see if she's dwelling about Maureen or, I'm sure that there's going to be new wounds, but hopefully that Sidney does not get stuck at the restaurant. She can just be there for a glass of wine and then go.
I hope so too. But girl deserves
well.
all the wine that she wants.
Ash, thank you so much for joining me for this beautiful song. Please go listen to Right Where You Left Me. Again, if you haven't listened to it before, you're listening to it for the first time, please let us know. Ash, I love you. Thank you for doing the Taylor Swift song with me.
Oh my gosh. It's my favorite thing to do. Taylor Swift, you, Scream. What more can I ask for?
All right, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, "I'll be right back," because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!